Wishing to surprise Jason before the wedding, I completed my business trip early and bought a ticket back home, only to find a piece of women's underwear that wasn't mine in the washing machine while unpacking, and a strand of milk tea-colored curly hair on the pillow that shattered my rationality. I took a taxi to his company to confront him face to face, but upon reaching Jason's office door, I overheard him proposing to his secretary, "Celia, will you marry me? I can break up with her right now. With just one word from me, the bride at the wedding can immediately be you." The sincerity in his voice halted my steps, and my hand, frozen mid-air, ultimately couldn't push open that door. I secretly booked a ticket abroad, watching him perform before me, and on the wedding day, when the bride fled, he lost his mind. My hand, poised to push the door, froze mid-air. Through the glass on the office door, I clearly saw Jason holding the deed to our wedding house in one hand and a diamond ring in the other. Dressed in a custom-made suit, he knelt on one knee in a sea of red roses, facing his secretary Celia, whom he had hired just 6 months ago. Unlike the calm and indifferent expression he had when proposing to me 3 months ago, his eyes now brimmed with excitement and joy, and his readiness to brave any danger for true love stabbed at my heart. "Will you marry me? With just one word from you, I can immediately transfer the property deed to your name alone, take you to notarize it, and draft an irrevocable gift agreement. Anything to make you happy, I'd do willingly." Moved, Celia knelt on the ground, and the two embraced tightly, kissing. The scent of roses slipped through the door crack into my nostrils, leaving a bitter ache in my chest. My gaze fell upon my wrist, where rested the only gift he'd given me in 5 years of dating. My hand, frozen mid-air, suddenly dropped, and the ill-fitting bracelet struck my hand painfully. I reached to remove the bracelet, only then noticing that its gold plating had begun to fade at some point, revealing the cheap, blackened metal beneath, much like my 5-year relationship with Jason. It sounded romantic and looked glamorous, but it crumbled at the slightest breeze. The two kissing inside gradually parted, and Celia's voice was so coy it seeped into my bones. "Jason, I don't want you to replace the bride at the wedding, it can only be her. I want you to break up with her publicly at the wedding. I can't stand how she bosses me around, okay?" I recalled teaching her a few work-related things when she first joined the company, never imagining she'd misinterpret it this way. After 5 years together, Jason shouldn't deny me even this last shred of dignity. But just as I lifted my foot to leave, his indulgent voice came from inside. Okay, I'll do whatever Celia says. Who let her bully you? Your husband will make it right for you." "Really? But you've been together for 5 years, and everyone says you're a golden couple. In those 5 years, I spent 3 with you. Others might not know, but don't you? I knew Jason was the best to me." Hearing 3 years, my breath caught in my chest, and my pupils trembled uncontrollably. Tears quickly filled my eyes, covering my mouth. I fled like a deserter, and when I got home, my hands shook so badly I could barely open the door, gulping down 2 glasses of ice water to force myself to calm down. I immediately called my boss, Alan, about the overseas branch recruitment you mentioned last time. "I'm willing to go." My boss was initially pleased for me but then expressed concern. "But didn't you say you were getting married later? Your husband is in the country working abroad, may pay several times more, but what about your family?" I pressed the cold glass against my swollen eyes and said slowly, "I'm not getting married anymore. My career matters more, and it's a rare opportunity if we can part so easily. He's not the right person." My boss didn't know Jason but knew me well. He sighed and cautioned, "It's good you've come to your senses. I noticed when you were abroad, you couldn't even reach your boyfriend, and before marriage, he's already unreachable and uncaring about your life alone overseas. Marrying later is wise, a delay doesn't matter, but choosing wrongly does." Tears rolled down my cheeks as I nodded silently on the other end of the call. Even Alan, an outsider, knew these words weren't suitable to say in person, only advising me over the phone after I decided to go abroad. Yet the man I loved for 5 years sought to please another woman, aiming to make me lose face at the wedding. With the truth before me, I could no longer confidently tell others, I didn't misjudge him, he truly loves me. Before my business trip abroad, Jason promised earnestly that he'd video chat with me daily and send regular updates to ease my mind. But once I arrived abroad, I got only read but unreplied messages, perpetually unanswered calls, and his excuses of endless meetings and social obligations. I comforted myself countless times that he was striving for our future, but seeing him propose to Celia, I could no longer deceive myself. He knew full well that Celia was my greatest concern, the junior he supported with part-time jobs, the one who'd followed him since college, tirelessly thwarting his dates. Our biggest conflicts and fiercest arguments were all because of her. I could accept him changing his heart, but not that it was for someone I'd suspected and he'd denied. This was no different from a knife to my heart. Because I loved him, I yielded repeatedly, even agreeing to let him hire Celia into the company. Yet he turned around, intent on making me lose face at my own wedding for that woman, splashing cold water on my face handful by handful. My emotions finally settled. At that moment, he sent a message: "Honey, I worked overtime so late today. I miss you so much and can't wait to marry you tomorrow." My grip on the phone tightened as I stared at the screen, lost in thought, until my eyes stung, and he sent another message. "Honey, haven't you finished work? Why didn't you say you missed me today? Woo-woo, did you fall for someone else out there? You're about to get married." His familiar tone made my heart skip a beat. Recalling how he'd suddenly acted coy while I was abroad, I realized in that moment it wasn't about missing me, it was guilt after cheating and betraying me. I suddenly wanted to know how he'd face me after successfully proposing to Celia. With a slight movement of my fingers, I replied quickly, "I'm off work and miss you too. Can we video chat now?" "Yes, I'll be home soon." He didn't keep me waiting long. 10 minutes later, I heard the sound of the password being entered outside, and I stood quietly at the door with a glass of ice water. The door opened, and the moment he saw me, he abruptly dropped Celia's hand. There was no surprise in his eyes, only the panic of being caught in a shameful act. Before I could ask, he hurriedly explained, "Why are you back today? Don't overthink it, it's just some unfinished work matters I brought home to handle." My gaze toward him was icy, and only then did I realize how clumsy his acting was. Celia's expression hinted at smugness. "Sister Renee, did you rush back for the wedding? I haven't had the chance to congratulate you yet." I was immature before, please don't be mad at me. Staring into Jason's evasive eyes, I replied coldly, "Immature? I think you understand far too much." She feigned illness time and again to steal Jason from my side, approaching him under the guise of seeking advice, gradually swaying his heart. If that's called immaturity, then she's a natural genius in matters of love, whether intentional or not. I lost utterly. Jason couldn't bear me criticizing her, his guilt turning to anger. "Can you stop being unreasonable? Celia means no harm, what can she know at her age? You're 3 years older, why be jealous of a little girl? Even marriage can't shut you up." Knowing full well Jason would follow her wishes and dump me at the wedding, she still hypocritically congratulated me. My mere sarcasm became me being unreasonable. Over 3 years, I've lost count of how often I cried and broke down because of Celia. He knew she was my Achilles heel, yet he brought her into our home while I was away on a business trip. Sleeping in my bed, kissing my fiancé, taking everything of mine. Then, when I questioned it, he'd say, "You're being unreasonable." The warmth in my eyes faded rapidly, and when I spoke, there was no trace of emotion. "So you're marrying just to silence me? Jason, what right do you have to call me unreasonable? Whether it's unreasonable or not, you know full well." Countless lies, endless excuses, even the money for my wedding ring was leftovers from gifts for Celia. 5 years of love reduced to a faded fake bracelet, which I'd treasured. How laughable. Jason's brows furrowed, his face full of irritation at my questions. "You just got back and you're already causing trouble? I told you I brought Celia home today for work, it's exhausting enough, and you're still giving me attitude. If you hate me so much, why come back?" Noticing his harsh tone, he pursed his lips. "Anyway, I've explained what I needed to, believe it or not, it's up to you. 3 years of arguing hasn't tired you out, but it's exhausted me." His gaze held only disgust, devoid of the affection from 3 years ago. I could feel every breath trembling, my mouth opening but unable to form a complete sound. Celia glanced at me with a light chuckle. "Sister Renee, don't be mad, brother. Jason was just in a meeting at the company. Don't misunderstand him. Arguing before the wedding is a bad omen. Get out. I shouted through gritted teeth, hiding the trembling in my voice and my own disarray. Hearing this, Jason's face darkened completely, anger flaring in his eyes. Renee, don't go too far. Celia's here just for work. What's wrong with you? You're 3 years older but less sensible? Did all the food you ate go to waste? This man, who once argued red-faced to defend me, now berated me mercilessly for another woman. My body swayed slightly, and facing Jason's furious glare, I spoke slowly. Do you remember promising me you'd never betray me? The veins on his neck bulged, pulsing with rage. Renee, look at yourself before judging others. How are you different from a shrew now? Celia kindly congratulated you, and this is your attitude? Must you cling to old nonsense? No wonder your dad cheated if your mom was like you, paranoid and nagging daily. It'd be a miracle if he didn't. Always suspecting this or that, making issues out of nothing. Who can stand a lunatic daily? If you don't change, your fate won't be better than your mom's. His words stabbed me all over, leaving me battered. The undisguised disgust in his eyes mirrored my father's when my mother caught him cheating. The man who once vowed to protect me forever and never betray me vanished into memory. He knew I despised betrayal most and understood why my parents' relationship fell apart, yet he was the one who taught me trust and devotion step by step. The armor of love he once wove for me was now torn apart by his own hands. Trembling, I smoothed the fallen hair by my ear, forcing myself to stay composed. His gaze landed on my bare wrist, his expression darkening. Where's that bracelet? Forget it if it's lost, I'll buy another later. Apologize to Celia, and today's matter is done. My eyelashes trembled uncontrollably, a mocking smile tugging at my lips. Apologize? Get out, both of you, get out. This was the house I bought with my own money. He'd said to preserve my first-time buyer status, so it was registered under his name for now, to be transferred to mine when we upgraded later. I never imagined my trust was paving the way for Celia. My 5 years truly feel wasted. It was Jason's first time seeing me so resolute, a flicker of shock in his eyes. Celia, aggrieved, reddened her eyes, gently wiping tears. The diamond rings reflected light too dazzling for me to look at. I'm sorry, I didn't expect my presence to cause another misunderstanding. I'll leave now, and future work matters will stay at the office. After speaking, she turned and ran out, nearly slipping in her heels several times. Jason watched, his anxiety and heartache plain to see. He only said to me, "It's dark, I'm worried about a little girl going back alone," before rushing off after her. In that instant, I recalled working late abroad with no messages of concern from him. My broken heart sank deeper. The last shred of hope for this relationship faded with his departing steps. My body slid down the wall, powerless, 5 years of love not ending grandly but in another ugly conclusion. I booked a flight for the wedding day in 2 days and threw out everything in the house belonging to Jason and Celia. That night, Jason didn't return, sending only one message: "Celia isn't mad at you, she'll attend the wedding. Clear things up then. I'll finish work at the company tonight and won't come back." I stared at the screen for a long while, my heart flooded with mockery and bitterness. 3 months apart, and he hadn't asked about my feelings or how I was abroad. I suddenly felt that in his eyes, I might not even be a person, just a source of amusement for him and Celia, a clown in their show. I went to the fridge for a drink, only to find, upon opening it, that she'd invaded my life unnoticed. My whiskey had been replaced with Celia's preferred Korean soju, so I irritably discarded everything inside. Back home, after washing up and lying in bed, unable to sleep, I opened my phone's gallery, clicking through photos of Jason and me, zooming in, then deleting them entirely. Viewing all the photos felt like reliving our passionate days. My dry eyes ached terribly, and after some thought, I endured the pain to send Jason one final message. "Let's take wedding photos tomorrow. I want to see what we'd look like married." Maybe it's 5 years of obsession, or a lingering reluctance in my heart. Even if we couldn't marry, I wanted a glimpse of a happy ending with Jason in a parallel world. He agreed instantly. Yet at the agreed time the next day, he sent an apology. "Sorry, something came up at the company, I can't get away." To free up time for the wedding in 2 days, go ahead today, and I'll take my photos later to stitch them together. I didn't argue, deleting the message after reading it. I took a taxi alone to the wedding dress shop he'd booked, where the staff eyed me up and down. They looked troubled. Miss Renee, are you sure this dress was custom-made to your measurements? It seems quite off. Maybe contact your fiancé about the details he provided when booking? My eyes fixed on a photo in the center of the wall, lost in thought. The man I'd loved for 5 years was intimately kissing Celia's forehead, their figures against a sea and sky backdrop looking like a perfect pair. The staff smiled beside me. Do you like this style? This gentleman hired the country's top photographer. The bride's wearing the dress you're holding. If you're interested, we can get the photographer's contact for you. I shook my head silently and left the shop. Back home, as I packed to settle abroad, Jason suddenly messaged me. The shop asked when you'd go, didn't you? What's your deal? I told you I'm busy with company stuff. The appointment's set. Can you stop making a fuss? I took a deep breath and typed back, the dress booked under your name isn't my size. He was silent for a long time, replying only after I closed my suitcase. Maybe the staff messed up. Let's skip today. After the wedding, I'll get you a new one, and we'll shoot together. This shop service sucks. I'll blacklist it. That evening, he came in with Korean fried chicken, presenting it like a prize, his eyes crinkling with a smile. I got this just for you. Try it. This place always has long lines. I glanced at the fancy box, my voice cold. I can't eat fried food. You forgot. Take it to Celia. Don't waste the effort. Little girls love this stuff. A childhood stomach condition makes me sick with greasy food. 3 years ago, Jason remembered it perfectly, but today he forgot. Even my words didn't jog his memory. Instead, his face darkened. Why bring up Celia again for no reason? Are you done? Eat it or not? After he slammed the door and left, I had the locks changed. That night, I received no more messages from him. On the wedding day, I woke up and dragged my suitcase to the airport. Before boarding, I sent him a breakup message, and as I turned off my phone, his call came through. My hand, still on the screen, accidentally answered. Jason's furious, unhinged voice exploded. Renee, what do you mean? Are you crazy? Do you know what day it is? It's the wedding. What's wrong with your head? All the guests are here waiting, and you're saying this? Today's not the day for your tantrums. I don't care where you are. Get here now and explain, or don't ever let me see you again. Before I could reply, he hung up. I stared at the screen, a bitter smile on my lips. Clearly, he'd abandoned our 5-year relationship first, yet I took the hit, kindly breaking it off and playing the villain. He, the true culprit, feigned innocence and turned on me. So, loved ones can indeed become hideous when love fades. I couldn't help doubting my past judgment. Before shutting off my phone, I checked Celia's Facebook. Sure enough, she'd posted that morning, attending the wedding of my life. Heard there's a big surprise today. In the photo, the diamond ring on her finger still stung my eyes. Enduring the ache in my heart, I exited and deleted her contact. Then I contacted a lawyer I'd met through work, briefly outlining how my fully paid property had been infringed upon. I asked him to start preparing the lawsuit documents and sent him the wedding hotel's address to deliver the lawyer's letter to Celia. Since I'd be working abroad, I entrusted the case to the lawyer, promising to return for court if needed. After sending these messages, my heart pounded, my breathing shaky. From love with Jason to court, this was now the ugliest outcome after tearing off all pretenses. But compared to my dignity, already trampled by him, I refused to let this scumbag hand over the rewards of my hard work to someone else. He could cheat or even love Celia, I wouldn't mind, but I couldn't tolerate him using my property to win her over. First agreeing to dump me publicly at the wedding, then planning to gift my fully paid property to his new lover. His actions were like stabbing me dead then mutilating my corpse. Since he was unjust first, I could be unrighteous in return. After my final message, I quickly turned off my phone and left. Boarding the plane, a slow smile curved my lips. I hoped Celia would enjoy the surprise I'd sent her today, wishing her a wedding she'd never forget before I departed. After hours of flight, the plane landed. I exited the airport, dragging luggage with one hand, turning on my phone with the other when the signal returned. Countless messages flooded the screen, Jason's name topping the list with 99 plus. His calls in 5 years combined didn't match today's tally. I scrolled the screen, full of scorn, ignoring his call alerts. Besides Jason's messages, the next was from the wedding planner, frantic and nearly unhinged, unable to find me at the venue. A 2-hour gap split the chat messages. Finally, they replied, "Since you weren't there, the wedding company's emergency plan was to have Celia step in as the bride." To avoid stalling the ceremony and embarrassing the groom, I typed expressionlessly, "Thanks for the trouble, get the payment from Celia," then exited. Opening the lawyer's chat, he said the lawsuit was delivered to the wedding by a courier, but Celia beat the courier publicly after receiving it. His face was bruised, and the lawyer paid the hospital fees with him. Reading this, surprise flickered in my eyes. I hadn't expected Celia, so gentle on the surface and frail before Jason, to act this way. She seemed fragile enough for a breeze to hospitalize her, yet she assaulted the courier at the wedding. Now, it appeared her past behavior was a calculated facade. Only today, provoked by me, did she lose control and drop her mask. I asked the lawyer for the medical costs and sent him double the amount. Then I went outside to hail a taxi to the branch's apartment. As I loaded my luggage and sat in the car, Jason's call came through. Too late to block him, I pressed answer. The next second, his unhinged rant blasted my ear. "Renee, where are you? Send me your address now, I'll come find you." "What do you mean? Why Celia? Are you fucking crazy? She's just my secretary, you owe me an explanation today. Do you know how long everyone waited at the wedding? You nearly made me a laughingstock today. The wedding company said they've never seen this in decades. You went too far today, I'm beyond disappointed. Withdraw the lawsuit now." Caught off guard by his tirade, I laughed in anger, my voice devoid of warmth when I spoke. "Give you my address? I think you're the crazy one. We're done. Can't you read Chinese? Get it straight, who are you to me? What right do you have to question me now? Do I need to spell out why I'm suing Celia? Proposing to your secretary, how romantic, especially with my girlfriend bought property. How do you think I should handle it? Apologize to her, hand you my house with both hands, and wish you a century of bliss? Jason, do I look like an idiot? To let you treat me like a fool? Did everyone wait long at the wedding? I heard it was full of surprises. Jason didn't expect me to miss the wedding yet know everything that happened. He fell silent until the car neared my destination. He finally spoke, his tone tentative. "Renee, you've misunderstood. I can explain. I don't know what you're talking about. Celia fainted from your lawyer's letter today and was hospitalized. She's still in danger. As my subordinate, I just came to check on her. And since you didn't show up, she kindly stepped in as the bride to save me from embarrassment before the guests. I didn't expect you'd misunderstand." His words ended my patience. The wedding went as they wanted, and now he's playing dumb, still eyeing my property. As he started his next sentence, I cut him off coldly. "Enough, see you in court. My house won't be your marital home. I'd rather leave it empty for beggars than let you have it. I've thrown out all your stuff at home, including Celia's forgotten underwear in the washer. Buy new ones. Don't contact me alone anymore, since you're married now, lest Celia misunderstands me." After saying this, I hung up without waiting for a reply. Just before blocking his number, another call from him flashed on the screen. I blocked him instantly, and the world quieted. The car arrived at the apartment then, where a kind colleague from the branch waited at the door. As I stepped out, she had the driver grab my suitcase. Her warmth made it hard to refuse, so I followed her to the elevator. Inside the apartment, I didn't stop, tidying the room in one go. By the time it was done, night had fallen outside. Wanting to thank my colleague, I knocked on her door, inviting her to dinner while learning the local routes. Chatting on the way, she shared her relationship story, breaking up with her boyfriend in China due to working abroad. Her sadness was palpable, darkening the mood instantly. Still, she forced herself to warn me to nurture any relationship if I had a boyfriend. Once, I might have comforted her. She just hadn't found the right one, but after betrayal, I couldn't say that anymore. What's the right person? I don't know. Jason was once my soulmate before Celia appeared. 2 years of constant passion felt seamless, but people change in a flash. From initial doubts to final surrender, it took just 3 months. In a daze, I couldn't help pondering. If I'd suggested breaking up when Celia first emerged, would he have cut her off to reconcile with me, or dived into a new romance with her? This pointless question will never be answered in my lifetime. The world offers no what-ifs. Perhaps no choice is wholly right, only the test of loyalty in human nature. Over dinner, she briefly outlined the branch's situation. Back at the apartment, I just said goodbye and opened my door. The lawyer's message arrived, his cold text revealing hesitation. The other side's boss says he's your husband and opposes the lawsuit. The defendant's in the hospital, still critical, demanding you drop it and threatening me. Don't worry about me, this is my job. I'm just checking if you want to cancel the lawsuit. Reading it, my brows furrowed sharply. I typed quickly, ignore him, I'm single. Suing Celia wasn't really about her but to strike at Jason, that scumbag. After washing up and lying in bed to rest, an unknown domestic account sent a friend request. Thinking it was an old colleague, I accepted, and my phone pinged instantly. They sent a 10,000-word essay. At first, I thought it was a new scam and nearly deleted it, but my eyes caught the opening lines. It was about the wedding. I realized instantly it was Jason, skimming his essay, sincere in tone, but useless after reading. I copied a line into a browser, finding an identical essay online, making me laugh in fury. He'd discussed me across oceans even after our breakup. After no reply, Jason lost patience, messaging again, did you see it? I know I was wrong, don't be mad. I admit I wavered, but when you didn't show up at the wedding, I understood my heart. We've been together 5 years, closer than family. You can't be this cruel. I've said countless times Celia's just a sister to me. I don't get why you hate her so much. I promise no private contact with her, okay? Can't you give me one more chance? Must you be so final? His words nearly made me retch up my dinner in disgust. Never had I so hated my poor judgment, only now seeing his vile true face, his heart. The heart to con me out of my property with her? Hatred surged within me. I sent him a screenshot of the plagiarized essay, then deleted and blocked his account. I dug up the house payment bills and receipts from my phone, sending them to the lawyer overnight. Later, he replied, it's secure, and with a slight smile, I lay down to sleep peacefully. The next day, I reported to the branch. Work piled up instantly, leaving no time for lunch or thoughts of Jason and Celia's nauseating mess. My new boss noticed my work habits, his gaze full of praise. You deserve greater opportunities, he said, and I smiled shyly at the compliment. Back in China, despite fierce competition, promotions weren't impossible, but I gave up broader horizons to care for family and Jason. Looking back, I saw how foolish I'd been. After work, I checked my phone. The lawyer said the evidence was nearly ready, with court in a few days. I heard Celia had been discharged and returned home. I didn't dwell on it, calmly awaiting the outcome. The next 2 days, I tackled work here, staying up late to free the court day, but when it arrived, Celia was nowhere to be found. The lawyer called internationally. I answered instantly, telling them without hesitation to switch the defendant on the spot. After all, Jason's proposal promise of gifting the property and notarizing it was verbal. The rushed wedding and Celia's hospitalization likely left the house unprocessed. Before the evidence, Jason first argued it was my voluntary gift during our relationship, but he had no proof. Maybe he did love me then, not foreseeing this day, never mentioning a gift agreement. Ultimately, the judge, based on my payment records, ordered him to return my property. After twists and turns, it was mine again, and Jason's spirit visibly wilted at the verdict. After the case, he detained my lawyer, pressing him until he got my approximate address. When the lawyer relayed this, his tone was helpless and apologetic. I shrugged indifferently. It's fine, we've already burned bridges, no trouble. I thought Jason would rush from China to confront me with my address, but a week later, nearly forgetting it, he appeared downstairs at my company. He looked utterly wrecked, haggard, red-eyed, chin covered in greenish stubble, hair messy like a street vagrant, a stark contrast to the vibrant Jason I'd loved. I frowned, intending to dodge him, but he rushed up, grabbing my wrist. As my colleague panicked and prepared to call the police, I briefly explained to her. Once she left, Jason gripped my wrist excitedly. I'm sorry I let you down, I beg you, can you give me another chance? I was fooled by that wretch Celia. She vanished on court day. Afterward, I drove to her hometown, circling endlessly without finding her address, only learning from village elders her family moved a decade ago. She didn't quit, just disappeared. I've reported it for 3 days, but the police can't find her. I'm breaking down, realizing I misjudged her. From now on, I'll only trust you, okay? Renee, give us one more chance, please? I looked at his weary eyes, offering no reply. Jason ran just a small company, which I'd managed alongside my own job before. I'd heard many veterans recently left his company, with the core team dissolving and no timely replacements. He still claimed he needed me, thinking I didn't know his situation. The humbler he got, the more I saw my past folly as laughable. 5 years of money, heart, and time, only to be used as his tool. He'd rather trust a fraud than give our 5 years a proper end. I shook off his hand firmly, shaking my head coldly. Jason, I gave you chances countless times. In every fight over Celia, I stood by you, hurting myself. I gave you those chances, but you never let me win. Now we're done, and you don't need to show up again. Perhaps the ice in my eyes stunned him. He watched me leave without following, though daily messages from new numbers kept coming to my phone. A month later, a colleague I'd been close to quit Jason had gone bankrupt. I glanced at the chat, replying lightly, no need to tell me anymore, he's nothing to me now. How about trying my company? I'll refer you. Life holds far more than love. Those lost 5 years pale beside my shining future.